So, welcome everyone. Officially, we're starting our presentation. Here we have Dimo, our co-speaker today. Welcome, Dimo. Say hi to the audience.
Hey guys.
So, me and Dimo, we are going to talk to you today about how we are going to play the game of agility in the true story, which is coming from Gameloft. And I'll leave the floor to Dimo to present himself, because he's one of the very key stakeholders and players in Gameloft.
Thank you very much, Nicole. That's so kind of you. My name is Dimo Dimov. I'm a Go Games Director at Gameloft, and I'm basically in charge of games such as Asphalt 9, March of Empires, and Warplanet Online. So indeed, I'm one of the few people that started this agile journey for Gameloft a year ago together with Nicola. And today we are going to tell you our story.
Yeah, and we're going to start with a small poll, because we want to see how you basically connect to the topic here. So I'll ask you to use your phones or browser to open menti.com and to enter the code that you see here, 7743930, where you'll be able to participate in a small poll, where we're going to see how pretty much the audience is pretty much relating to the topic today. So mobile phone or browser, open menti.com and enter the code. Once you're ready, you can actually also answer the first question that we want to see. And the first question is very simple. Are you using agile ways of working in your company? Yes, no, sometimes, or I don't know. I'm not sure if there is a fifth option, but okay, then let's see the second question. We have some people still voting, so I'll give you a few seconds more. 1, 2, 3, go to the next question, which is, do you have a real mindset, agile mindset at place? Because ways of working is a good thing, but let's see how we are going with the mindset. The picture doesn't seem so positive here, like the previous one. So it looks like we're doing agile, but not being that much. Anyone still voting? Okay, we have some no answers popping up. Cool. Let's see the next one.
Yes, it's very good.
Sorry?
We have some yes answers, so that's good.
Okay, yeah. And let's see the third one. Is agile suitable for every industry? What do you think? Okay, so Pretty much today, we're going to talk about how we're doing Agile in Gameloft. What are we doing regarding the mindset and how are we being Agile in Gameloft? And we're going also to talk about some industry specifics. So hope that it will be useful for everyone. At the end of the presentation, maybe we can come back to the survey and to see what we think about these three questions then. So let me switch to the slide deck again. Just a moment. And here we are. Let's start with, we just finished the poll, and now we'll start with the story. Some of you might know it, might know it, some of you maybe not, but I'm still going to share this story with you because it's very important and very relevant to the topic today. It's about cargo code. Cargo code comes from a story coming from the Second World War, where the US enters the war and attacks Japan. The problem is that the US aircraft, they need to fly through the whole ocean, drop the bombs and come back, which is huge distance. So what they do is that they cultivate some islands in the middle of the ocean. They use them for storing cargo, for landing and recharging and so on about the planes. The natives there, they're actually maybe surprisingly, but very happy with that, let's call it, visit of the US folks, because they receive lots of goods, lots of stuff, like tools, like food, like fancy stuff that they didn't have so far, and they were very happy with that. They were very satisfied. They really liked what these gods of these strange people were bringing. The problem comes that the war was over and the US military left the island. So what happens is that these natives, they were very disappointed that these goods stopped coming. So what they did in order to make them come again was to recall, okay, what were the rituals, what were the things that these strange people were doing, so their gods were bringing the fancy food and tools here. So maybe if we do these rituals again, in the same time, in the same way, maybe their gods will hear us as well. So this is their thought. And as you can see on this picture, they built all kinds of fancy stuff like aircraft, planes, and towers, and all kinds of things like these glasses here that you can see. And their expectation was that building this stuff, they are going to execute the rituals, so the gods will send them the goods. And of course, that wasn't the case. So here comes the word, the saying that we have in Agile called cargo code. It means copy something without understanding it. And this is a very big threat that we see when we work with organizations, with companies that wants to do Agile, because in many cases, they really only do what they see without understanding it. And this was basically one of the cargo codes that we need to really be very careful with. So today we're going to discuss different cargo codes, different facts, different myths about Agile, how we need to implement Agile, how we need to transform organizations in Agile, and most likely we're going to do it explaining a real case, a real journey. And basically, this is the first cargo code here that we need to tackle. In many cases, companies believe that Agile is a destination, that we are not Agile now, so we need to do something, for example, implement Scrum or something else, maybe stories, maybe story points, I don't know, and we become Agile. So we're not Agile, we do something and we become Agile, like a state. But it turns out that's not really it. It turns out that Agile or agility is actually a journey. And now we'll see in our story how many things actually it turns out that we're doing and Gameloft was doing before even start talking about Agile. So in many cases, actually always you are somewhere on this journey. And the challenge here is to understand where exactly we are on the journey and where we want to go. What's our destination, how we want to actually progress in this journey. So Dimo now is going to tell us, Dimo, can you tell us more about Gameloft and about the roots of the journey that we started?
I'm going to explain exactly how our journey started, how this idea has evolved, and why we actually went for it. So it all started about a little bit more than a year ago. We are having two of the most successful Gameloft games here in Sofia, March of Empires and War Planet online. So respectively, these games were on the market for 7 and 5 years, and they were becoming more and more complex in terms of mechanics, in terms of code, also in one of the most complicated mobile game genres, namely the 4X strategies, or just the mobile strategies. At the same time, our competitors have been becoming stronger and faster, and we have often read about Scrum being part of their success stories. All this led to market pressure, which is immense nowadays. Players are more and more demanding on receiving every single feature they see in other games, and we had to be on par with that. So we need to be faster into producing our features, into producing the content for the players, and respectfully updating our games. So to be exact, we realized that we should know exactly what we want to do, what KPIs we should be following, and we needed to have a clear direction, a common goal, and namely, this is one of the Scrum pillars. So we started asking ourselves, are we Agile, and what is our perception of Agile? So more or less, each of our teams has been Agile to a different extent, but we realized that our definitions, like these three guys on the table, in the presentation, they were not exactly aligned. And the first natural step was to start and align our perception of Agile and agility.
Actually, I can even add here, when we first worked with your guys, with your teams, actually we heard all kinds of terms: Agile process, Agile methodology, Agile ways of
Agile
working,
framework, Agile everything.
Everything was Agile, Agile pen, Agile picture on the wall. Everything was Agile, and basically this is really important that this happens always when we start with something, that there are different people. We have really a lot of people. So maybe we talk about maybe how many, 100 people maybe?
In our studio, we have about 200 people, and in these particular games that we were talking about, there are about 50 people in each of it. So these are pretty big teams in terms of number of people.
So you can imagine that you have 50 different, maybe sometimes slightly, but still different understandings about what is Agile and so on. So going to these people and telling them from tomorrow we are Agile means that we are telling them different message, because everyone understands something else initially, which is normal, of course. So what we did was the fundamentals training. Actually, why, Dimo, do you think we actually, how we came to this idea to do training? Do you remember?
No, would you remind me?
Yeah, actually what we did was that we did several discussions with you, with Preslava, with other people in the company. And at some point, kind of natural, we came up with the conclusion that we need some kind of a training, but also a workshop to, on first hand, define these Agile terms and language. So we stop talking about different stuff, but also self-reflecting and coming with some concrete, I don't know, action plan or roadmap, or just actions that we want to start. So this was the initial idea here. If you remember, our first training was first workshop, because it was again training and a workshop, like a mixture, with maybe all, not all, but most of the leaders that you have in Gameloft,
Yes,
right?
we decided to start this training with all the leadership, or at least with most of the people from the leadership in the company, so that we can align our understanding of what Agile is, and to create this this perception of what are we going to do from this moment onwards.
And actually, we were really not super clear about what we are going to do, but what became more and more clear with these workshops and trainings was our as state. So where Gameloft is at that moment of time. So we defined, if you remember, several pain points, strengths, things that we do good, things that we need to still continue doing and not changing, at least not removing them. Also, we defined different challenges and problems, maybe not problems really, because all the games, as you said, they were existing for many years and they were kind of producing and productive teams. But we defined where we are. So that's the first point, because if you have a journey, we usually start with where we are. And this workshop and training, from one hand, it serves the purpose of building the common language, but on the second, it does exactly that. Brings to everyone the same understanding about where we are. What's our initial starting point of the Agile change or journey or whatever. Cool. So this is what actually we do. In Agile Pool, we help companies like Gameloft to understand where they are and to help them make some steps, to help them implement the changes they need and to tackle and achieve the goals, like the goals that Dimo explained early, that the state of the game and how they want to progress and to improve. So basically, this is what we did together. How we did it, after we defined the as state, we also needed to define a vision, because in order to transform, you'll see after this slide that actually we're doing lots of, let's say, we're doing lots of steps, step-by-step approaches, what we're doing in terms of transformation and change. But in order to have this step-by-step approach, you need to have clear North Star. You need to have clear vision of where you want to go. And this clear vision in the beginning is not existing. So working with everyone, and we all together need to define where we want to be. And what we defined together, again, during these initial trainings, workshops, etc., discussions, brainstormings as well, was that we need to form a foundation based on the Agile mindset and culture, 3 pillars, which is not surprisingly the 3 well-known pillars of the empirical process. And these are transparency, inspection, and adoption. And we also need to implement more tools and more ways of us focusing on the right value. So this house here was pretty much the house of the Agile transformation of Gameloft that we wanted to go to. This was the picture that we wanted to have always in mind when we think about some steps, some change, or some idea. And as I said, now you see with a bit more details in 2 slides when I give the floor to Dimo to explain the exact thing that we did. But actually, you see that in different industries, like here, the gaming industry, they have lots of specifics. And implementing copy-paste solutions, it's not only working from cargo code perspective, but in many cases, it's just not working because, for example, here, we cannot just do Scrum like just taking the Scrum framework and implementing it right away. You see that there are many specifics that actually need to be adjusted, that need to be taken into account. So what we decided together after several brainstormings was that we're going to work on a tailored approach. And this tailored approach, it had to serve few purposes. The first one was exactly that, to adapt the well-known practices like Scrum, like different ones, to the existing structure, the existing challenges, the existing roles and people that we had, the existing games, because as we said, these games, they were delivering. And Dimo, do you remember basically your main requirement was to not delay the current, back then, the current speed of delivery, right? We wanted
Yes,
to...
it was very important for us to keep the same speed of delivery, at least the same speed of delivery as we have at the moment. Because I'm going to get back again to the core of our games. These are live games that are being played at the very time which we are actually speaking right now by hundreds of thousands of players. And it was a very important requirement for us that we don't stop doing what we do, and we are doing our transformation while we are working on our games. And of course, yeah, evolving them as we are evolving.
And the other big challenge was that we had so many people. As you said, we had games with 30 people, with 20 people. So everyone was having not only different understanding about Agile, but also different vision about what good looks like. So we needed a personalized approach. And in many cases, it was not easy and possible from the first let's say, to act in the same way with everyone. We had different people that were really asking all the time, okay, why are we doing this? Why don't we do something else? Why we have problems here? But it's not really a problem, that's the right thing. So basically all these questions and challenges from the people brought us to have this personalized approach. And this personalized approach came exactly from the idea that we need to implement the change from inside. So we had Marce, we had Ivomir, we had Pavel, and different people from the team that actually joined us to implement the change, to implement the Agile ways of working and the Agile mindset as much as possible. So imagine we had a couple of or several leaders that on one hand, they saw Agile more or less for the first time, and we needed to give them the empowerment, but also the accountability to be the Agile ambassadors inside Gameloft. So I'm not sure how they felt in the beginning. Maybe Dimo, you have more view about this.
They were terrified, and at the same time, they were hoping that it would end quickly.
But it didn't, because now actually they are still there, a bit more confident, and they're still implementing the change. And so this is very, very crucial, that we need to form a small team of people inside that are going to drive the change. It's not working from outside. And also the change itself, it should be agile. What does it mean? It means that on one hand, we cannot go and implement waterfall transformation to plan the transformation and to execute it at once. Also, we cannot do it without many steps, and also we had many games that we need to transform. So what we did is that we actually used this ship by ship approach, or this product journey approach, where different games basically started in different time. And as you can see, the War Planet game, they started first. They were our pilots, and the other games, they were coming afterwards, and they reused a lot of the learning, a lot of the lessons learned and the expertise and experience that was gained from the initial pilot. So this was the approach that we started. And Dimo, maybe you can give more details about what exactly we did in the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. So after we did these initial fundamental trainings, we realized that okay, we need to continue with these agile leadership trainings on one end, but we had to go with a pilot project. And WorkPoint Online was our pilot project. One of the key takeaways from our initial fundamental trainings was, all right, we need to establish a main management tool, because up until this moment, different departments within the teams were using different tools. So you can imagine developers, for instance, using Trello, designers using Jira, artists using sheet of papers of their lead, marketing not using anything. So okay, we step one step backwards, and we said we are using Jira. That's it. So then we started our trainings with with WorkPoint Online, and this was our first piloting game. One thing that I forgot to mention, I should have started with this, is that more or less we divided our roadmap. This is our transformation roadmap into three major pillars. First one is people and culture, which looks a little bit sad as of this moment, but trust me, I'm telling you a story and this will look much better. Then the second one was process and interactions, which was our focus in the beginning of the transformation. And the third main pillar for us was the product itself, the game itself. And at this moment, we realized that actually in a game team, we have much more people than just the designers and the developers, and you're going to see a little bit later how a game team looks like. But we established this product team, which includes everyone from marketing, from monetization, from sales, from game community management, and of course from game design, so that they could focus on developing the product vision itself. And when I speak how easy we thought it would be in the beginning, we were thinking, okay, we'll implement Scrum, more or less we are aligned around this. We will create some stable feature teams. We've seen some case studies. I believe most of you have seen Spotify. So we thought, okay, we have around 30 people, 35, maybe 40 people in the game teams. And we will create a couple of feature teams, one product team that will be driving the vision and the performance of the game, and a content team that will be producing anything that's out of these two teams. So we wanted to adopt Scrum, to have clear roles, and to manage our dependencies and risks. However, now I'll go a few steps forward. This is how actually it looks right now in Gameloft. So it is, yeah, it's much more complex and looks scary at first, but actually it is not really different from the first picture. When we started doing the changes, we realized how many positions we actually have. And then we realized that all people from marketing, all people even from QA, from user acquisition, etc., they are part of this team, and they should be part of respectful Scrum team. So we had to find meaningful Scrum teams for each of these people. And again, this is just a snapshot of our transformation. It will most probably be different in 2 months. It will be different in 6 months, in a year. And this is absolutely fine, because we know this is a journey and we are going to evolve with the market and with basically the natural evolution of our team. So we did this, let's say, structure, and some people are part of this, they're solid part of these Scrum teams. For some other positions, we realize that they cannot be just part of one team, or they need to be present ad hoc. So the guys that the positions that you see in yellow, these are the core part of the respectful Scrum teams. The other people were more or less still finding their place, and they are part of one team at a different stage. Then we are switching throughout the teams. But right now we have a very clear idea that we're going to be working around this structure, and we are going to evolve it.
Yeah, our point of view was also very interesting at that point, in that time, because actually, as we said, we were really keen on implementing Scrum or something Scrum-like, at least. But what we imagining was the usual Scrum structure. You know, we have product owner, we have Scrum master, we have developers. Yes, these developers, they can have QA, so etc. We have a very good experience with all kinds of UX implementations, etc. But here, when we got deeper into the context, we understood that basically it's not really just a product owner. We have a bunch of people that work like standalone professionals and experts. We have a person who is dedicated to define the game requirements, another person who is accountable for the monetization, and etc. etc. We have not just UX specialists, we have people that are creating complex characters, complex gameplay, game design, etc. We have even the game dynamics that are handled by other people, and it's really complex. It's not just a product owner there. In the same manner, implementing the game itself, it's not really bringing 5 people together and ask them to make the job done, because we have actually different kinds of work here, and it was sometimes so different that, for example, piece of the design could be developed or created. The artists, they can draw fancy character and create different fancy UI, or how can I say it? Dimo, help me with the language here, for let's say for weeks, and in the same time we need somehow to keep the different pace for the developers, they need the true developers there. So the pace of the workers was very different in the beginning, and we were really not able to put them in a Scrum team and tell them, okay, work all together for 2 weeks.
Also, one of the very key problems that we resolved with this structure is that many of the positions you see right here were actually acting as a silo. And this is, imagine a silo of a single person. I'll just give the example of marketing and monetization. So, marketing is saying, okay, I do my job, I'm bringing the users, but you are not monetizing them. Monetization, on the other hand, they say, yeah, but you are bringing crappy users, we cannot monetize them. So they were not working together. With this structure, now we have them part of a single team, and they're actually working together on how to monetize and how to get the best out of these users that are coming into the game, and creating together the long vision strategy about our players. Just a single example, there are many of them, but it's going to take the whole night, so I won't bother you that much with it.
So basically, we needed to get into the context and to define how to do this tailored approach, but we still actually started with the basics. So, for example, when we talk about transparency, of course, we needed to first understand what is transparency. And it should be very clear that for us, transparency is not just, for example, seeing the progress. It's about everyone to understand what's going on everywhere in the game. Everywhere in this complex team structure. So that was a big challenge, and again, we just broke it down to the basics. So what we did is that we needed to focus on a clear backlog. As we said, we defined that we're going to use Jira and Jira only, not 5 tools there. So basically focusing on the product backlog, focusing on sprint backlog, so it doesn't matter how many teams and feature teams we have, product teams, etc. They need to have a clear sprint backlog to track their work and etc. So the next logical thing was the product increment. At the end of every sprint that you see now, how we actually did the sprinting, but actually at the end of the sprint, of course, we try to have all kinds of, as much as possible, real product increments. And I was very surprised that, for example, in some sprints, we not only had, for example, demo with an increment which is demonstrated to stakeholders, but actually we were able to do the so-called play tests. So people were gathering together and playing the game with the new features in it on a demo environment or stuff like that. But it was really interesting for me, for example, as an Agile coach, to see how we can actually implement a demo as a real playtest. So there were people playing the game, which was very nice. And as far as I know, the feedback from this approach was very positive. And this is actually something that came from inside. That was an idea that I could never come up with, but actually the people from the team they came with that idea. That maybe instead of demo or review meeting, they can have play tests when it's possible.
And they actually went even further rather than just having a positive feedback. They were splitting into different roles with different player behavior, and they were gathering some ideas about the game. Then using different again agile mechanics, pool mechanics, they managed to put some of these ideas in the game and see the actual value of this demo of this playtest.
Yeah. So the other two pillars, inspection and adoption, they were also a bit challenging for us because yes, we wanted to go with 2-week sprints, but also we had the game development dynamics which we cannot just bypass and ignore, because every release was actually something that was planned initially, and every release of the game was actually something that is about to be developed for at least, let's say, around 6 weeks, sometimes a bit more, sometimes a bit less, but actually an increment of the game, a real increment or the real release of the game was something that was about to be developed by this huge team of all kinds of feature teams, product teams, etc. For 6 sprints. So their release cycle was about 6 sprints, sometimes again a bit early, a bit less, sometimes a bit more. So what we did is that we implemented these ways of working, that every update of the game or every release started with a release planning or update planning, where we were planning the high level. Sometimes actually it was very low level. There were a lot of details in this initial planning, but the key point here is that after it, we gave the opportunity to the different teams and the whole team of teams to work in an iterative manner, where they were implementing in 2-week sprints, the update. At the end of the release, we were planning to have release review and release retrospective. With the time, we tried different experiments, different approaches. For example, we had also retrospectives in every iteration, of course. But in the beginning, we started with one big retrospective every iteration, every 2-week sprint for the whole team of teams. So everyone together was retrospecting. At some point, we decided that we're going to experiment with each of the teams having their own retrospective and then having a personal way of connecting the retrospective action items or results between the teams. So we tried different approaches in order to find what works for us and what is maybe not working that well. And Dimo, what was the result of this initial pilot, let's say?
And yeah, the results. The first and most obvious thing was the fact that everyone was now much better aware of what's happening in the team and within other departments that are still part of this team. Product thinking was basically what we were most proud of, because the direction of the development, all the suggestions that we started gathering and all the improvements were very much product oriented, with particular KPIs in the game that we know we want to improve. Along with this, we did series of workshops involving everyone in the team to brainstorm and discuss the future roadmap of the game. Up until this moment, the roadmap and the whole vision of the game was basically a task for a couple of people, and they were saying, this is your roadmap, you have to do it. Now, we decided that this roadmap should be accessible to everyone, and everyone should feel the ownership over the roadmap. So they got these workshops, they were able to propose any ideas, and I would say that for 2023, more than 60 up to 70% of the features that are about to be implemented in WordPoint Online are coming from these workshops. And naturally, this led to much higher engagement within the teams, because people got to be much more interested in what's happening. Most of the ideas and of the features that are about to be developed are actually their own ideas. And of course, they want to see them implemented in the way they imagined. So they were really enjoying the fact that they're working on something they created. It was their idea, and now they have to implement it.
Before we continue, just for everyone, at the end, we're going to have, of course, Q&A time. So whenever you come with a question, with something that pops up in your mind, you can write it in the chat. So please enter all kinds of questions that you have regarding what you see and what you hear in the chat. And at the end, we can have a discussion. This is just about not to forget it. It's not a problem if you add the question when we get to the Q&A session, but if you do it now, you'll not forget it. So use the chat for questions. Cool. And Dimo, what's coming actually? What came after and what is coming?
Yeah, here's what came after and what's about to come. Once we got the initial results from the first game, we realized that okay, we're preparing our second bolt, and we started agile workflow for our second team, March Empires. We established their product team, and at the same time we took a little bit deeper step into our people and culture development, and we have created this Studio Agile Champions program. Which means all of the people who are part of the initial trainings of the initial Agile fundamentals training created this champions program, and we started another series of trainings, more like coachings with Bogi and Nicola every single week. And this roadmap that you see right here is actually the result of what we did within the Agile Champions team. So we continued with more leadership training. We decided that we should have a completely different innovation strategy. So exactly these workshops, which I was speaking about, the roadmap workshops, it was then followed by a workshop about our vision for the next 3 years for our games. We wanted to step back and get ourselves into an environment where we could think about the future and how our games are going to look like, how are we going to be competitive with the rest of the games that are there on the market. Because every single day there are more than 2,000 games being uploaded on Google Play and App Store. So yeah, we realize that we need to be much better than them. And then, of course, we've went with our self-organizing feature teams. You've already seen how a structure of a game teams look like as of now. Again, just to remind you, in the beginning, we got a team that is contained of 30 to 40 people, sometimes even more, and they were working or trying to work like a single unit. Now we still have this single game team, but they're organized within a smaller feature or Scrum teams. And we have so many things in the roadmap that I don't think it's even the latest version, but as I told you, it is just our state as it is right now. And we are looking forward for all the improvements that we have in mind.
Actually, one big improvement that we did was the focus of the value. How we did this was basically when we introduced the product team. As we said in the beginning, we had a bunch of standalone people that were owning different parts of the product. Let's simplify it like that. And on the other hand, we had, as we said, 30 people implementing different things. So what we decided is that we're going to build product teams where more or less different people of the product team, they are also part, some of them, many of them are part of the feature teams, but they're also part of the product team. And what we have is two different teams that work on one hand like standalone Scrum teams with their own sprints, with their own backlog for the sprint, etc. But also they were in there because the people from the product team, they are in many cases the leaders of the feature teams, we also have this constant feedback cycle between the development, the team that is implementing the different features and the whole updates, the whole releases, and the product team, which is helping, supporting them, but also getting their support from the game team in terms of implementing the game requirements and the real value, the added value. And as Dimo said, actually, we saw much more ideas, much more involvement and engagement coming from the people on the ground.
And exactly this level of iteration and this level of interaction between these teams is ensuring that the game team or the developers are always working on features that are bringing value to the product. We are constantly inspecting whether what we're working on is either adding value in terms of the desired KPIs or is about to add value. And if something doesn't seem right and doesn't work, okay, we're just canceling in early stages and keep on going. So in short, yep.
I was just about to say that that's all good so far, but it's not going to work. Just we have a question from. We have a raised hand.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask who is in the product team as roles, because it's very small and it's not readable. For the game team, I can see the product owner, the developers, and the Scrum Master, but for the product team in the circle, who are the people, the roles?
Okay, I can explain a little bit further about the product team. Ideally, I will start a little bit from the beginning. Each of these teams each of the game teams is being led by a game manager who is in charge of the vision of the game, for the performance of the game, and essentially he's the person to go when we need to define our final version of the roadmap. So the game manager is acting as a product owner of the product team. And the rest of the people in the product team are the guys from marketing. We have different roles in marketing. They are acting as developers in the terms of Scrum. So each of them is working on their own project or their own tasks, and they are synchronizing between themselves. So maybe we can get back to how we look right now. It is more representable. Yes, the producer or one of the producers, usually the lead producer, acts as the Scrum Master of product team, but it doesn't necessarily mean it should be the producer. Everyone from this team could act as a Scrum Master for the sake of having one. So besides marketing, we do have the product manager, which in classical companies is more or less the sales manager. We got one person from the game design, typically the lead game designers, and another marketing-oriented guy, which is the user acquisition manager. That's just for the sake of differentiation by marketing manager, we have in mind the person who is in charge of all sorts of activations, all sorts of big marketing campaigns that we are doing. User acquisition is mostly about the ads which we are publishing via different providers.
And there are also some fluid, let's say, people that are coming and joining when they need it.
Yes. And also these guys from marketing particularly, they are part of the marketing Scrum team. And we got one, the product manager is the product owner of the so-called live operations team, because product manager is the guy who is defining our monetization strategy, but we do have also different positions that are in charge of executing this strategy and making sure that we have everything planned ahead in time.
Okay,
thanks. That's very clear now.
We can get in a bit to more questions, because just in order to build the whole picture, we all know this cliche that culture eats strategy for breakfast, because doesn't matter what kind of fancy picture and processes we target and we sketch, actually the people that are there, they need to do it. And as we said, the cargo code mainly gets about mindset and culture. So we needed to work a lot, and we still need to work a lot on the development of the agile mindset. So in the beginning, again, we did this exercise of defining what is the exact agile mindset, what is the let's say representation of the mindset that we really want to work on and to tackle, because mindset is very broad. The agile values and principles, of course, we spoke and we speak a lot about them, but we also needed to formalize them a little bit more. So the 5 main aspects of the mindset that we wanted to work on were first the team mentality. Doesn't matter that we have a game of 40 people in total that were in different types of teams during the time. We needed to focus a lot on making them all act and feel as a one big team, as a real team. We needed to work a lot on the aligned autonomy, which means the people, the leaders of the organization, to act as servant leaders who are empowering the people on the ground, the people that are actually making the job done. We needed to work a lot on inspiring, reminding, and etc., the culture and the values of Agile itself. That's why we focused a lot on the leaders, because the first, let's say, the main way of us implementing a different, new, or a bit changed culture is actually to start with changing the culture of the leaders themselves. Of course, you can expect that many of them showed resistance. Many of them showed, let's say, they were unsure, insecure, not convinced that these new ways of working and values are actually the right thing. So we needed to work a lot on that. And what we did was to basically form the Agile Champions program, which Dimo will give the concrete details in a second. But it was, from our perspective, bringing all the leaders together and making them talk, discuss, brainstorm different Agile ideas, to see, because it's not just to talk about the stuff in general, they also need to see what's of the practices, what's of the things in terms of concrete learning. So there is a concrete learning element here. So what we did is that we are using our e-learning platforms for them. Every one of these champions, they have account in our learning platform. They watch videos that are dedicated to different topics. Every week we have a different topic that we talk about. Every week we discuss the topic and we try to learn from it. But it was not just learning. Actually, after this learning from videos and from discussions, etc., it is also about implementing the learnings. So these champions, they are gathering, they are discussing what part of this new learnings they can actually implement and how they can implement it. Again, the Agile implementation itself is Agile. So we're a backlog with step-by-step implementation and etc. And with the time, we're more and more going to Agile, real, true Agile community. So Dimo can give more evidences of this Agile community's existence.
Yes, you already explained exactly how our Agile Champions program works, and even at the beginning when we were creating this program, we at least this idea was very clear for us. We wanted to evolve this Agile Champions program into a community. On the top of everything that just Nicole said, each of the members of the Champions program, they were our Agile ambassadors within their game teams, and they were trying to implement different aspects of our Agile framework day by day. And Ideally, actually we moved towards this creation of the Agile community. We went into very different directions. We started we've created some branding materials. We have Agile posters, which are very closely related to our game, so it's some sort of game of humor that most people would not understand. We started having info sessions involving everyone in our studio. We call them "What's the Point?" and basically every 2 weeks we're having these sessions where a different aspect of our Agile framework is being explained. Everyone from the studio could participate, and there are Q&A sessions on the top of it. We've created our own conference page, which with materials and all sorts of warnings that we have done and that are particularly tailor-made for the Agile implementation in Gameloft, which currently works for us. And we have many things planned in that aspects. I could say maybe we have some sort of a roadmap for the coming 6 months, exactly what sort of activities we are going to have in order to continue evolving this Agile community and to reach our destinations of being a self-managed organization.
Yeah. And actually the other studios are learning from you now, which means that you are really making a difference. So we end with what we started, that Agile is not a state, Agile is a journey. And what we just presented as a case study is just a case study of the first N months of the journey. And actually, a big part of the journey was started even before that, because in order to go and ask for Agile means that you're already started the journey. And yeah, Dimo, I think you mentioned more or less what's coming, that you have a huge roadmap, etc. on the journey, but is there anything else that you want to mention here?
I maybe just want to end that we realize that this journey for us, it's not going to end. We know that we want to possess all the techniques to be competitive on the market, to learn from our competitors, to learn from what's currently a trend, and adapt based on it. Also, I think it is very fair to state that in many initiatives which we started, we absolutely failed. Some of our retrospectives were complete disasters. Some other events, they were not working at all. We were even having some fights between each other in the champions team for some different topics, and this is completely fine. We know that we're going to be failing with lots of things, and we will still learn from these failures and continue developing ourselves.
Mm-hmm. And if I can close with a brief summary, getting up to the 3 questions that we asked you in the beginning. The first was, are you doing Agile? The reality is that you're always doing different parts of different Agile techniques. So you saw that we actually implemented different elements from Scrum and Agile, etc. So that was the first, that you always need to not reinvent the wheel. So you need to count on the Agile ways of working. And the second question was about the mindset, which means that you need to a lot focus on the mindset itself. You need to work on this building Agile value and community inside the organization. And the third question was, is Agile suitable for all kinds of industries? Of course, not in the same way. The idea that you need to be adaptive, fast changing, and progressive, I think it's applicable to every industry. Every industry wants to be like that, but you need to use a tailored and custom approach to get into the specifics of the domain of the industry and to try to find the right tools and the right way of implementing them. So this is how we're closing now, and we can jump to the question and the Q&A section. So everyone, if you have any questions, you can either write them in the chat or you can just raise a hand and ask them. Feel free to shoot us with all kinds of burning questions. Who's gonna be the first one to try? So the question that we have now in the chat is, the first one is, for how long are you doing the Agile transformation? So we started 1 year ago, right? Maybe exactly 1 year ago.
Yeah, exactly 1 year ago, we did the first trainings in December. And yeah, it's basically a year.
And during this year, lots of the work was done, like homework, like that was done by the people themselves, by the change agents and so on. Cool. I don't know, Boriana, if we answered your question, but yeah, that's.
I'm impressed for 1 year how many things you did. That's really awesome.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Christina, no question from my side, just a thank you for sharing. Cool, welcome. Anyone else with a question or?
We have another question. Are game teams the best management approach for game studios? Well, I wouldn't speculate if this is the best management approach. It's the most popular for sure. And it is the one that works for us particularly.
Yeah, in general, in Agile, we always say that there is no best practice. There are good practices that you can make kind of best for you or working enough for you, but even there, then you need to change them at some point.
In your company, one additional question to the main one. In your company, are those game teams dedicated to working on one game only, dedicated to a specific game?
Yes, they are working on just a single game. So all their work in terms of product vision and development, it is focused on a particular game.
So you see how we said in the beginning that Agile is a journey and many things you already do. And this is one of the examples, because one of the key Scrum, for example, values is focus. It's working on one product, not on 5, because otherwise you not have the focus. You'll be disfocusing and refocusing all the time. So this is something that was already existing from the first place, which we were very happy to see in the beginning. The next question is, did you increase the number of meetings at the beginning compared to the past, and how did the participants, main developers, react to this increase? Dimo, do you have answer? I have my answer, but
I also have my answer, and it's a tricky question indeed, because we increase the numbers of trackable meetings. So we kind of stated, okay, we are going to have these meetings and everyone should be aware about them. The tricky part is that there has been lots of ad hoc meetings that used to happen in the past and no one was really keeping a track on it. So yeah, it is, maybe the number is higher, or at least in the beginning it used to be higher, but we knew that there is some sort of a structure in these meetings and a purpose for each of it. First, and what is your answer, Nicola?
Yeah, my answer is so similar. First, have in mind that different people perceive the change differently. So for some people, the new meetings were something very positive. Other people didn't really like it in the beginning. Other people still don't like it enough, let's say. The idea is the following, that doesn't matter all this. Doesn't matter that there were complaints, of course. First, we wanted to focus a lot and to repeat that the idea of the Scrum events, for example, planning, daily, review, retrospective, etc., is to actually replace and simplify and remove the other events. So maybe if you're doing, let's say, 5 different stuff for planning, now we focus them in on one single planning every 2 weeks or whatever. So actually with the time, we try to reduce the number of the meetings exactly by using the events here. And the other point is that doesn't matter that many people in the initially, naturally, it's normal they complain that they have many meetings because the cargo code is still working. They see the Scrum as something on top of the existing stuff. They don't see it initially, or some of them don't see it initially as something that is going to replace and improve the existing ways of working. They see something on the top. So we need some time to see that's not really the case. And basically, the good news here is that at the same time when people were complaining that, yeah, we have more meetings, actually people were also reporting better transparency. So yeah,
the next question is very interesting. How the leadership responds to the change? And I guess I have to take it. Yes. The short answer is differently, but it depends on the stage. In the beginning, most of the people were conservative because this whole change looked very scary for us. We were thinking that first of all, it was very hard for us to imagine exactly how this agile transformation will look like in our current culture. Then with the time and with all the workshops, with all the coaching sessions that we had, we get to crystallize the idea of how it would look like more and more, and the leadership within the teams, they become more involved in it. And we started from this position where everyone was kind of scared, or at least not sharing too much about it, that now we have these leaders who are driving this change. In the beginning, there were just 2 or 3 people who were pushing to get things started, and now I can see it literally everywhere in every single team.
The next one, can you give some examples of improvements that you observed? You said you tracked common goals and metrics. So the good news is that as a game industry representative, you're tracking lots of stuff. So what were the improvements that we really tracked?
Yes, I can speak about in terms of KPIs and of trackable measures. We truly track everything in regards to the game. And if we speak of pure game performance, I'm really happy to say that both our games are having a very successful year, considering that the gaming market is not at its best shape. Our teams are doing an amazing job, and it's okay. I wouldn't contribute this all to Agile because these are the actual people who are doing it, but we see them much more involved in the common goal for the game or for the product itself, and it is very visible purely from a KPI perspective. From structural and production perspective, it is difficult to say exactly what has been improved. It's different from team to team, and I just don't want to truly speculate on this. Maybe there are other people in this chat that could speak about it, or even Nicola, because he's very involved in some of the teams.
As you said, one of the things is that many people actually participated into the ideation and also the early feedback providing. I personally saw how many people were tracking different things that needs to be changed and improved during the implementation, which again, it's not purely Agile's, let's say, credit. But actually during this, for example, review sessions, etc., we see how teams are putting more and more themselves into the shoes of the end customers and proposing different things in terms of the gameplay, for example, and etc. Also in terms of, let's say, delivery, as far as I know, everything is on track, right? More or less, of course.
Yes, of course, it is more or less, but yeah, we cannot say that we have any big issues with that.
Cool. Let's see the next one. How do you estimate the cost of feature/game? Are you relying on Jira tools?
On one hand, first of all, when we're speaking about a feature, we have the cost on one end, which is more on the production side, and I wouldn't give that much information about it. But on the other hand, we are tracking also the value of this feature, which is more on the product side, and this is where I'm much more specializing. So when we are approaching a feature, we have the feature itself being discussed in the product team, taking its value from the perspective of different KPIs, and at the end, it always comes to what this feature is going to bring to the players and what this is going to bring to us as a company. So it's always a matter of having in first place the value of this feature and the incremental revenue that we are going to get out of it, and we are comparing it to the cost. So if we are relying on Jira tools, I would say that we are working on this, but we are not really yet there.
Yeah, this is maybe something that will come into the transformation backlog at some point, but currently, more or less, you are estimating, let's say, traditionally.
Yeah, it's a classical way of estimation.
Breaking down the work, thinking how much is it as a time in terms of the team and people you have. But the good news is that you have the routines already. As you said, the game is developed for years. So you have the routine, so more or less, so your updates, the releases, you know how actually to shape them in order to not be 6 months of work, right? So this experience or working via on top of your experience is exactly, again, one of the things that still you do, and they are agile themselves. Cool. Next one is, thank you for the session. What you did is very cool. I have the following question. How has the product evolved since you started the transformation?
I've already covered the part of the performance of the products, which we are very, very happy with. But the product as a game and yeah, as something that our players are valuing, we are also measuring how our community is perceiving the features and the changes that we are doing, and we have observed very positive changes in the community sentiment. Also, purely subjective, I would say that we have included much more features that are actually bringing value to the product, and we've reduced the number of things that are pure waste. So we don't have a feature that we are introducing it and it is like of no interest to the players and no value to us. So I absolutely feel that our products are at much better state that they used to be, and we truly took this step back and think of our products from the perspective of time. And both games have now very ambitious plan for what they want to introduce in the upcoming year and the upcoming 3 years in general. So it is actually not about how it evolved through this year, but I'm more optimistic about how the teams themselves see the evolution of the products.
Yeah.
So the future seems pretty bright.
As always. Cool. So we don't have any more questions. I think that means that we can close the session. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for your time. I think almost everyone stayed pretty much to the end of the session, which means that you were interested in it. Otherwise, you would have dropped somewhere in the middle. So thank you for your time and hope that was interesting case study for you.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Goodbye, everyone.
See you tomorrow. Some of you, bye.
Bye.
Ciao.